In den 60er Jahren waren die Perspektiven sehr gering.
In the 60s, the prospects were very poor. There were a lot of families with many children, where their income or the availability of food at home was sometimes not enough to provide for the children and feed them. And so the youngsters would go up to the mountain pastures in the summer, the lads, and they'd also work for the farmers. That would today be criticized as child labor, but back then, the parents would be happy if there was a farm where the boy could go in the summer, so that he could at least eat and sleep there. It was simply a fact that there was nothing in South Tyrol at the time. There were no jobs, no training places. People didn't really know what they could do, so they could start a family, build a house, or have a secure life and a certain level of well-being. And so people said, what should we do? Should we only have craft businesses, or should we also have industrial companies? And we saw what happened with the tire manufacturer Continental that wanted to create almost 2,000 jobs. People said, no thanks, and they said it was a battle between tourism and industry. I will say this, if we hadn't said yes to tourism back then, we wouldn't have been able to prevent the exodus from the mountain regions. One thing is clear. No one is going to get an industrial company to move to Funders, Pretau, or Match. These are simply areas where you can't locate industrial companies because of transport difficulties, distances, or special situation. Some of these areas are, however, so beautiful that this is in fact a benefit for tourism. And you can promote and locate tourist businesses there. Jobs get created there. Construction activity takes place, meaning that you can create the other structures that are necessary for older people, for young people, for sports and culture and so on, such as kindergartens and fire brigades, clubs, associations and the like. At the beginning of the 1970s, tourism became real tourism, because in the 60s, late 50s and 60s, I think as regards German guests, when they spent their holidays here in South Tyrol, they saw it more as a social function, coming as development aid workers, if you like, who at the time, of course, also enjoyed the ambience and admired the rural structures and how hard people worked. I can also remember that the first German tourists who came at the time also brought donations of clothing, which we then distributed to the locals and which were gladly received. But that was in the summertime. In winter, the question then was what to do, because there was still no tourism, and so there were no jobs. And so very many, naturally men and young women, went abroad to Switzerland, Austria, Germany, in any case to certain European countries, to do special woodworking jobs or work as lumberjacks. They then formed groups that would take over certain parts of the logging trade via intermediaries, where unfortunately quite a few lost their lives at work, because it was a dangerous job.
Dann bestimmte Partien Holzlegungen übernommen haben, wo leider Gottes auch nicht wenige ihr Leben dann an ihrem Arbeitsplatz verloren haben. Die Einheimischen.
The locals were already skiing before then, but in the way that you ski when you have to trudge up a hill and then ski down again. Skiing in South Tyrol only developed once the lifts were built. And these lifts are also a result, or rather a precondition, for tourism, for winter tourism.
Eine Voraussetzung für den Tourismus, für den Wintertourismus. Und in dem Moment, wo Südtirol die
And once South Tyrol was given its own competences following the second autonomy statute after 1972, When all these things became the responsibility of the South Tyrolean provincial administration, things moved relatively quickly. And we can also see from the figures showing the development of tourism that the moment the administration was transferred from Trento to Bozen, development took off relatively quickly and became easier. Nor was there any attempt to slow down or channel initiatives, but rather the bureaucrats and political leaders said, "Thank goodness they are building in the valley, because it will create jobs." And people were really happy when someone got something done. And this development can be credited to those who did do something.
War man froh, wenn jemand etwas getan hat. Und die Entwicklung ist jenen zuzuschreiben, die etwas getan haben.